Thank you for showing up this morning. Hopefully some joggers may be coming in here pretty soon from the 5K. So I'm going to take a little bit different approach to today's presentation. Maybe it's my age, I don't know what is going on, but I'm getting into this thing about what words really mean. And I picked out the word of today's title, specifically the word innovation. Now, Merriam-Webster defines it, as you can see on the slide, primarily something new related to an idea, method, or device. If you were at yesterday morning's plenary presentation, you heard the presenters get really close to what Albert Einstein said a long time ago, which is we cannot solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them. And for the last year or so, I've really gotten onto this kick about following a guy named Simon Sinek. And Simon Sinek has written two books. One is Start With Why, and the second one is Leaders Eat Last. He also has a great YouTube video on managing millennials. Simon Sinek builds on the definition of innovation being something new, but it also has to change behavior. Change behavior and change course of action. So with that, I'm going to focus a little bit less on the tools that we use and a little bit more on the changes that we have been able to affect in Charlotte-Mecklenburg. Now, let me briefly talk about Charlotte-Mecklenburg. Charlotte-Mecklenburg is in North Carolina. We're halfway between the mountains and the coast, about 500 square miles, 4,500 homes and businesses, plus or minus, in the floodplain. In the last year, you may have heard of Charlotte-Mecklenburg from the unfortunate incident of a police-involved shooting, which resulted in several days of riots in downtown Charlotte. But you know, one of the things that happened recently, we've now figured out who's supposed to use which bathroom. So if you've been following the North Carolina stuff going on, at least when you come to North Carolina and visit, please do so. We've got that straightened out for you. So with that, I'm going to touch on four things. Creek maintenance, floodplain map review, losses avoided tool, and stream restoration and ranking system. And I'm going to clip along through this pretty quick, because my goal is to stimulate the thinking. Maybe a little bit more than what your coffee's doing right now. To get you thinking, so when we get to the Q&A, we can have more of a dialogue amongst the panel and with the audience. So, creek maintenance. This is less about tools, and this is more about challenging status quo. But we're very proud of this. Since the 1950s, we probably had crews up to 80 staff that would go out and just totally clear channel banks. They would lay the channel banks back and rip-wrap them. This was our form of flood mitigation up until the mid-90s, where we, through looking at flood models, asked the tough questions. This set the beginning of time where we challenged the status quo. There was not a question that we weren't afraid to ask. And what we determined was that the way we were maintaining our channel banks was fairly ineffective. It was unsustainable, and it was really harmful to our environment. So, and more importantly, it actually minimally decreased our flood elevations. So we led an effort, and this was much harder than the 08 reduction in force. We led an effort where we reduced our maintenance staff by 70%. 70%, but we took that money and we used it to kick off our buyout program. Second item I want to talk about is our flood map review application. So, for those that you don't know, we do future conditions floodplain mapping. We started in 2000 and have remapped several of our watersheds since then. I want to be sure I'm not getting ahead of myself. The image that you see in front of you is an application where we've taken the most recent floodplain maps that are in draft and overlaid it with the existing floodplain maps. The areas that show where the floodplain is getting larger are shown in red, and where the floodplain is getting smaller is shown in green. Great communication tool, right? Very simple. What is more important is the user can simply click on a property and a dialog box pops up. They enter their name, their email address, and what their concern is. So what this sets up is a process for us to manage the mapping process, or the remapping process, to where we have people submitting their comments as well as us replying. Now, I know most of y'all can't read this, and this is actually a funny comment that we pulled out, and this is where we have to be careful when we rely on technology. The person says something to the effect, your map demonstrates a 50% or greater annual flood. It's never flooded like that. And the answer is, sorry, sir. Oh, hi, Ken. I apologize for the delay in responding to your inquiry. We had a software glitch on the online comment tool. So as much as this stuff is cool and whatever, we need to be very careful in the use of it. So what's the change in behavior? What's the change in action? So in early 2000, when we started taking over floodplain mapping, we had large numbers of people attending our community meetings in school auditoriums and cafeterias. But we had relatively few comments that we received. And it was all map-based. You can see a map against the wall. You can see maps all over the tables. People were very engaged, but we actually received very few comments. And you had to personally come to these meetings. Now let's contrast that to the application tool that we have today. We started remapping our floodplains in 2010 and still do it today. We do use a phased approach that we can get into some other day. Today, and I got this data in like 2 hours. I had staff go into the database and they provided me that over 50 comments we've received during this period of time on our new floodplain maps that are in draft format. But most importantly, over 26,000 page views on this application, which has generated more engagement. People have become more informed. And when you're more informed and knowledgeable, you have power, right? You have power. So even if somebody doesn't want to use the online application, and this is what's shown in the picture, you still can come to the meeting, and we will be more than happy to sit down with you with a laptop instead of a map and show you not only the 100-year, show you the 500-year, show you all the other things that are going on, show you our water quality buffers, and we will insert your comment directly into the application. Third, we all know this, flood losses are costly, right? And so we primarily tend to focus on the first two, building and contents. But we have developed a flood loss tool that focuses on other costs that are incurred at the community level and at the individual level. So in this graphic that you see is actually a home that shows the different categories of building, crawl space, content, vehicles, improvements, meaning outbuildings, displacement, emergency, and other or custom costs that we've captured. So in this instance, this is the '08 flood. And this diagram shows approximately $73,000 in losses. But what we do is we run this tool for multiple floods. So in this case, if you look in the 2004 flood, about $145,000 would have been in losses if we hadn't bought out the home and demolished the structure in 2003. Then you add that to the $73,000 that we estimated would have been in losses in '08. And now you have a total loss avoidance of about just short of $220,000. The buyout cost $173,000. So what is our change of behavior? What did we do different? What did we learn? So traditionally, up until we had this tool, after a flood, we would say, okay, let's say 100 residential properties flooded and 40 commercial properties flooded, and we would stop there. Not today. Not today. Today we would say, if this was immediately after the '08 flood, and we said this, by the way, not only X number of residential homes flooded, not only Y number of commercial properties flooded, but in '08, 173 structures that would have flooded didn't flood because we had the buyout program. And we estimate the losses avoided somewhere around $11 or $12 million. So the last one is actually one of the fun parts of my job. I run a stormwater program, and I've got great staff that run floodplain management programs, and they run water quality programs, but I run a stormwater program. And so we have high sediment loads in our creeks. In the foreground is McDowell Creek. In the middle ground is the Catawba River, and you can't see it, but in the background is the skyline of the city of Charlotte. Where the where McDowell Creek and the Catawba River meet is our drinking water intake. We have a problem with our streams. Our streams are eroding. We do a really good job controlling growth, controlling development, and holding erosion and sediment on site. But a large amount of our sediment is coming from our creeks themselves. In addition, our creeks have been straightened over time. Well before my tenure with the county, I just want to go on record on that. So what we have done in combination with our buyout program, you see the homes on the right side of the screen, and if you look a little closer, you can see the straight creek. That as actually you can pick out the riprap, right? You see it? And so after the buyout program, clicker, there we go. After the buyout program and the homes have been removed, we meandered the stream, let it grow back to its natural condition, and we have some incredible success. This is a plot of our stream mile suitable. It's an inverse of the bacteria levels in our stream. In '98, our board said that our creeks will be suitable for prolonged human contact. In other words, they said, get the bacteria levels down in our creeks. In '98, 25% of our creeks were suitable for prolonged human contact. Today, it's 76%. That's really good, right? That's success. And we've accomplished that through stream restorations and many other programs that we run. However, we're not done. Clean Water Act requires us to restore our streams for all things or in all impairments. Our streams are also impaired for biology. Those streams in red on the graphic are streams that are impaired because there's a lack of diversity of biology in our streams. And I'll repeat, the Clean Water Act requires us to restore our streams. So we have our next challenge, right? How are we going to reestablish the biology in our streams? And there's 300 miles of streams in which we have to prioritize to do that. So we took, out of the flood side, the cross-sectional information from our hydraulic models and zoomed into, let me back up. Each cross-section has a drainage area. And with that drainage area and the bank full conditions, which we zoom into the bank full, essentially, where the water comes out, it determines how in size the channel is, right? We do not do this for design. This helps us prioritize where we send crews out. Clicker. There we go. This helps us prioritize and not have to go walk all 300 miles to get to the feasibility stage for a fairly small number of projects. And most importantly, it helps us bridge the gap between the water quality folks and our floodplain management individuals using the same set of data. So with that, I'll end and look forward to the Q&A at the end, which hopefully we'll have some time to talk about what we think the future holds.